Hello and welcome to this episode of A House in France, recorded on Wednesday the 25th of May. Now, apologies that we haven't been putting out shows every couple of weeks as we normally do. In fact, this will be a fairly short show. Now, every time I say that, we tend to go on over our normal 15 minutes. Work continues on the new studio, and we are making progress. In fact, Lloyd and I had hoped to be using it for the first time today, but as you can see from this picture, it really is has a little bit way off of being finished. But as soon as that's completed, we will be bringing you some episodes from there, and that should allow us to do a lot more. Anyway, as always, I'm joined by my co-host Lloyd Arrow. So a very good morning to you, Lloyd.
Bonjour and hello. For those of you who are regular watchers, you'll notice that I'm having a house built. News from the building site, since the last episode, the roof and chimney are now on, major progress. Next stage being the doors and windows, on which point one of the limitations I have is that the windows, whilst being double glazed, have to be made of wood. This is a building restriction for any property in this particular town.
So does that mean they're a lot more expensive then, Lloyd?
No, not really. It's marginal, to be honest. There's not a major amount of difference, but it's one of those things you do have to take into consideration.
Right.
Also, I don't know if you can see the pictures there. I was lucky enough to get some English neighbours to send me some pictures, as well as their builders. So there's one of each.
Yes, it's looking very good. Though you do need to cut your grass.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone's got to do it. How was your trip to France, by the way?
Yeah, it was very good. We had a great time. We haven't been out there for 6 months, so we knew we were not going to find the place in pristine condition, shall we say. Normally, we have some friends out there who keep an eye on the place and cut the grass, but unfortunately, they haven't been able to do that for one reason or another. And so we went out, and first time in 6 months, the place smelt a little bit damp, but you'd expect that. 3 dead mice, so that's a record for rodents, and on one trip. We're still trying to work out where they get in from. But the real impact, I guess, was on the garden. The garden was really overgrown. Here you can see that a bit of the garden. This is actually where the gas tank was installed. We hadn't seen this before. I think I mentioned it before. We had Total install an underground gas tank for our heating, and they kindly left the pile of rubbish that they dug out the hole. I was sort of thinking they'd take that away. But that, we saw that. That's pretty overgrown, and then generally the grass, on the lawns around the house was, probably I don't know, up to 30, 40, 50 centimeters high, higher in a couple of places. The place where it really grown was down in the field, and in fact I think it was probably about over a meter was the highest bits of grass, down in the field. But after a couple of days there, we got the place under control, and it started to look very neat. We arrived, and the weather was in the low 30s. It was absolutely wonderful. But very strange. We had 30 one day, 20 the next, 25 the next, and down to 20 again. But we soon got the place sorted, and we opened the pool up. A little bit too cool to swim in, but it was a great trip. So we've got the place ready for the summer season, and your place is starting to look very good now, Lloyd. But there has been some bad news, or potential bad news, for all us owners of second homes in France, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's some tax changes to French law. Second home owners in France, they're basically facing a new tax. But until the actual law is passed, there's uncertainties about the actual scope of its application. French government had decided that non-residents who own second homes in France, basically they're required to make a greater contribution to the French taxation system. Homeowners already pay for what they call a tax habitation and a tax foncier already, and that as a result of that, we're actually having to pay a second tax and another on top of that, which is effectively based on about a 20% rental value of their property. Figures suggested at the moment that there are something like 360,000 second home owners in France. Around 200,000 of those are believed to be British.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. This is there's a lot of talk in the various forums on this, and it doesn't to me seem like a very smart move. I think a lot of people who buy second homes in France do a lot of work on them. They do them up, or in your case, have one built, and you're putting money into the French economy. And people who go on holiday spend money, and I would expect that most people who own second homes actually spend more money in the French economy, even though they're not there very often, than the majority of the locals. There's also been questions about whether this is fair under some of the EU law and Treaty of Rome, where you have to treat everybody equitably, because effectively this law will be treating foreign citizens differently to French nationals. So we'll have to see. I think we'll have to wait and see, Lloyd, and see what happens. I mean, the French always come up with these interesting laws, but they don't always end up being implemented.
yeah, that's right. I mean, they've got another law in place already, which is to do with short-term letting, effectively where UK residents with holidays homes in France that qualify for short-term lets, they're likely to be affected by the new legislation. Currently, property qualifies as a furnished letting property that's available to public as accommodation for at least 140 days a year, but that it must be also let as a commercial rate rather than friends or family for at least something like 70 days a year. But other than that, best thing to do if you have any concerns is to seek financial advice, really, or professional advice, should I say.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's probably the big news item around at the moment. So we're talking about leaving the house over the winter. So I wanted to give a few sort of tips on what we do. The first thing is that we bought a whole load of white dust sheets, and they were actually bought them off of eBay, just the normal sort of large bed sheets, and we cover everything up. I didn't actually realise how much mess things like spiders can make on furniture and lamps, etc. So, cover everything up. We make sure there's nothing draped on the floor. So things like curtains or covers on chairs, we lift up. Because what happens, when you move out, the locals move in, and that's the local animal and insect population. If you can get somebody to go and keep an eye on it, that's useful. There seems to be a debate about whether you try and seal a place up, or you try and let some air go through it. We are trying to seal our place. In fact, as people who watch this podcast will know, we installed some new windows and doors, so we've now completely finished the all the entries and exits from the house, and I think that actually helped us over the winter. We've got more work to do on the floor, big old oak boarded floor, which leaks like a sieve and has lots of gaps and things for various creatures to make their way in. So my tips are, cover everything up, get everything off the floor. If you can get some ventilation, I think that is a good idea. We haven't got central heating, so we can't leave it on. We're looking at having that completed, and we actually talked to a couple of the potential installers of the heating, and they both said that if you leave heating on, you only have to leave it on at about 8 or 10 degrees to keep the damp out of a house. You don't have to leave it on 15 or 20 or anything. You can actually just leave it on 8 or 10. So I think when we do have heating put in, that's probably what we'll do, and that will only probably cut in on very cold days, and hopefully won't be too expensive, because gas delivered into the gas tank is not as cheap as mains gas, obviously. All right, so I think we're going to talk about a couple of websites now to look at, Lloyd, and there was one that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, that's right. So I was doing my usual trawl around the internet for French-related goodies, and managed to find a French TV channel. But for those of you like me, that my French isn't particularly good. To help you keep abreast of what's happening in France, it's called France24.com, and there's an English section on there. So that allows you to keep up to date with whatever is going on in France in good old Anglais.
Yeah, I've had a look at that, and it's a good site. And so that's www.france24.com/en/France. Right, the website that I want to look at is I'm actually going to recommend a restaurant and a B&B. This is our favourite local restaurant down in France. So this is in Pompadour, where the national studs are, and that is it's a restaurant called Seven. It's just the number seven, and they have bed and breakfast. It's run by John and Anna Bennett, and we have had some great meals there. And they do all sorts of special evenings. They have various celebrations for a New Year. Bastille Day is especially popular. They had a huge fireworks in Pompadour. There's a racecourse in Pompadour, and thousands of people gather on the racecourse to watch the fireworks over the chateau. And actually, you can see those fireworks very well from the back garden of this restaurant and bed and breakfast. So, I'd encourage you, if you are down in the northeast Dordogne, or I guess it's probably in Corrèze, is it? We live in the Dordogne, so I'm not quite sure where it sits. But if you're in that area and you're looking for somewhere to eat, or you want somewhere to stay, they've got some wonderfly equipped rooms for B&B. And their website is www.7, that's the number 7, bedandbreakfast.com. And we're not being paid for this. They don't even know I'm doing this, but we have such a good time there. They are very friendly. They've helped us a lot. They've pointed us in the direction of plumbers and all sorts of things. They're run by, the name would suggest, two Brits, and they are making a real success of it. There are quite a lot of restaurants opened by Brits that don't really become successful, but they probably 90% of their clientele are French, and they're doing really well. So now, if you're driving down to France, Lloyd, you might want to try this place out.
I'll keep an eye out for it. Definitely, it's one on my agenda.
All right, terrific. And when you come and see us, we'll take you there.
Sounds
So,
fantastic.
so that's it. That's all we're going to cover in this episode. I hope it's been useful. We're looking forward to getting into the new studio and being able to do new things and getting back onto a regular schedule, and that will hopefully be in the next few weeks. So, if people want to get in touch with us, Lloyd, how do they do that?
You can email us at ahif@ttfn.tv.
Yep, and do that with any questions or suggestions, things you don't like, things you do like, or ideas that you have that we might like to cover. Or maybe, you're in France, you've got Skype, and you'd like to join us to tell us about your experiences. We're happy to have other guests on the show. So, from Lloyd and I, until next time, à bientôt.